Listeners, this is episode 15. If you want to learn about ganders of geese and Michiganders themselves, how about a little bit of out-of-state investing opportunity, getting hyper involved in your local, state, and national associations? This is Randi Brandt, NARYPN Advisory Board member, Realtor Extraordinaire, talking all things investing, advocacy, and even a foster parent for some incredible young kids. Listen now.
We've got all these people moving from cities into our town. I can probably be a millionaire in just a few days' time.
Wow-wee!
Now, whatever you do, don't tell anybody. If anyone else finds out about this, they'll all want to be real estate agents, too.
What do you think when you hear the words real estate? Well, welcome to the Market Shakers Podcast, a real estate podcast of Matt Kelly and friends, where we are committed to explore exactly what real estate should mean to you. And we are back, episode 15, the big 15. Hopefully we're right on that. And sitting across from me is I think this is our guest from geographically the farthest away, Detroit, Michigan, Motor City, Randi Brandt, NARYPN Advisory Committee, committee member of hundreds of different committees at this point. In just a short few years has overcome some incredible things. A little bit of history and hospitality, and event planning, love that. Avid skier, horseback rider, not a power lifter, but gym enthusiast, volleyball player for Michigan State.
Correct.
God bless Michigan State in that program.
Moving on. You can have him back. He is yours. We no longer want him as a coach.
Did he come from Georgia?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. Jesus.
Yeah, he's yours. You
We don't claim him.
No, he doesn't bleed green and white anymore, so he can have your red.
Red and black.
Yeah.
We sure love our troublemakers here in Athens, Georgia. I'll tell you that much. So I get burned for that comment, but it's all right. Anyways, Randi Brandt sitting across from me, realtor here once again from Detroit, Michigan, serving all over the area. Got some really, really cool stores, some really cool business model as well, working into the investment world. It's a common theme on this show, and doing some multifamily out there, but also just being an absolute wonderful advocate for her area. Baseball stadium parties for her clients. Just how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for talking more. So, folks, when we were recording this episode, she just got done speaking to our local RGA association about advocacy and building a business, and once again, overcoming adversity. So thank you for talking for another hour. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm happy to. It's going to be good. Going to be good times.
So Randi, first of all, how was the flight down here?
You are my second location this year where I have had to do a layover, so we need to work on that.
Okay.
Otherwise, it was fantastic.
A direct flight from Augusta.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm only a little needy.
Okay. How many? So, for those who don't know, NAR Advisory Board, they do an incredible job of flying out to different locations to speak upon getting involved with YPN, the Young Professionals Network for Realtors. Yeah,
we have a number of different topics that each of us, there's 18 of us on the advisory board, I believe, and we all have different areas of interest. Some have like work-life balance. That is clearly not one of my fortes. RPAC is always a big one, overcoming adversity, building a brand, leading through leadership. There's a number of things that we speak on, and the great thing is that NAR actually pays us, so we don't have to charge the associations. It's free to the association for us to come out, help them in any way we can, and they're realtors.
Huge benefit, and every single one of those advisory board members are absolutely just so impressive. So it's one of the reasons we're so excited to have you down here, and we're going to our first Georgia game tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
apparently y'all dress up for football games, but
we do.
Where am I at? So I was told I need to get a dress. I thought you all were lying to me. I have since learned I will be purchasing a black and red bulldog dress this evening.
Not a glaring blue, horrible, ugly blue Kentucky.
I'm debating. I looked on Amazon last night to see if I could have one shipped to my hotel just to screw with people, because how funny would it be if I am that Michigan girl, which I have to admit, thank you. I have not been called a Yankee once since I've been here. Mm-hmm. Whereas there are a few people that are friends of mine here in the Georgia area through NAR that love calling me a Yankee.
Really? Like we reserved that for like the Northeast.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I am Midwest. For anybody who doesn't know, Michigan is in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Fight me all you want. We are Midwesterners. So as long as we get that cleared up, I'm good. We can be friends, and I won't wear Kentucky blue tomorrow.
Perfect. So how many associations have you spoken with this year?
I think I'm at about a dozen
Dozen?
outside of my state.
Okay, and is this your first year on the advisory committee, or?
This is my first year, so it's a 2-year
Wow.
term. Yep. It's not a requirement, but it is a recommendation. Again, it's based on whether you build a relationship with somebody in that association or at that state, or if you just fit their dates that they need somebody for and or their topics. So
Okay.
it's kind of a puzzle piece of going through.
And we were a little bit of a puzzle piece here. Because we sort of met in Chicago, but you know how that is. It's crazy. There's
Whirlwind.
270 something attendees. So that the fact that we didn't really get to talk that's expected. So I'm glad you're down here. This is really fun. Some would say I'm more happy that you're here now than old Chris Nace is. And if this gets to him, I'm just going to love it. I'm going to love it.
We love Chris, and that's
Chris.
the beauty of the advisory board. We do become a family, so we can help each other out when we need it with business things, with speaking engagements, anything pops up. We all have lives that go outside of this. So if there is something that happens, we usually step in for one another when we can.
Okay.
So we still love him, but we'll make jokes at him.
So, folks, and I'm not going to, we heard you talk at the board here earlier, so I'm not going to make you relive through all these things. But Randi here, in a short amount of time, I don't know if you saw me tearing up a little bit. She has gone through some absolutely wild things. I mean, just a human living, breathing comeback story. So you were told you would not be able to walk.
Yes.
Ever.
Life is a journey. So long story short, it's about 16 months in the business, 32 years old. I was hospitalized with liver and kidney failure. During my time there, ended up having a subdural hematoma, which is a brain bleed, through a botched procedure. Had a stroke, was told I'd never walk again. And for anyone who doesn't see this, I walked in with heels on today. So that was 5 years ago.
That's awesome. So what was... that whole process, I think it was 42 days. Within 42 days, you took your first step.
On day 42 of my 60-day hospitalization, I took my first steps, and I use that term loosely because I was hanging from the ceiling in a little Johnny jumper, barely moving my legs.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed was that your hands, you had full control of your hands, correct?
Yeah, so my stroke was from the belly button down. I lost all feeling basically from the bottom of my rib cage down.
Okay, so she showed a video while during your presentation. So your hands were kind of up by your chest. So was that like an instruction? It's something I just noticed that you were doing the whole time.
It was subconscious. Nobody told me to do it. I do that a lot even now in physical therapy and at the gym. I'll still put my hands up. I think part of it is a balance, to keep balanced on it. But the other part was just trying to keep my hands up and getting that ability to just push forward.
So one thing I noticed is that you said the term "fight me" probably 6 times in the last 48 hours or 24 hours since you've been here. Mm-hmm. So I'm just assuming you're just ready to throw some jabs. That's what I'm picturing.
I mean, I have threatened to throat punch people before. I've never actually done it yet. There are some days, my physical therapist and my chiropractor, they get that more times than not throughout the week.
We're in real estate. You always want to punch somebody.
It's funny. When I was in the event world prior to getting into real estate, I worked with some very big name chefs, and we love them dearly. They're artists. They are also crazy.
Okay.
So when I was working for Vail Resorts, I actually had a punching bag installed in one of the large conference center kitchens because I had a knife thrown at me by a sous chef once. And this was a way to let everyone get their anger out in a safe and healthy manner.
The throwing knife part.
No, the punching bag.
The
throwing the
punching
knife part. We got through the 1,000-person plated dinner, and the following day, him and I had a conversation.
May I ask why he threw the knife?
He was angry at me because I told him he wasn't working fast enough.
No.
When you have a 3-star general not having his plate and people around him being served, you get some very angry looks from some very big people.
Okay.
So I was, 23, 24 years old. I was very young. I went back into the kitchen and said, I got my point across, we'll say, in a very loud manner.
Okay.
And his response to me was a knife coming across the 60-foot kitchen towards me.
Okay. So one thing I love about just this I've come to love about this podcast in general and learning about everybody is the backgrounds they come from. And so I'm always curious to know, so, your experience as an event coordinator, in Vail, of all places, absolutely. How do you miss those views, by the way?
Every day.
Every day. I don't know how people get tired of it. Apparently they do.
The views and the lifestyle. It's such a healthy lifestyle. So I moved to Colorado for work after college. I was 22 and I had just finished being a D1 athlete at Michigan State with volleyball, and I thought I was in really good shape. I go to the local YMCA because it's a small mountain town, and I'm like, I'll do a spin class. I'll kick everybody's butt. I had an 82-year-old man put me on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Because we were at 13,000 foot elevation. I was from sea level, had only been there like a week and a half, and he kicked my ass. So I was humbled quite a bit. But it's a very healthy lifestyle. Starting at 2 years old, children don't go to school on Fridays. They either go to the ski resorts in the winter and get free lessons, or they go to the bike parks.
Wow.
So being active outside is very normal, whereas when I come back to Michigan, unfortunately, it's not always the case.
And you were over there, you said you were there for, how long were you doing the event planning for?
So I was in Colorado for total just under 7 years.
7 years, okay. 7 years there, 7 years in real estate. Okay, so I want to come back to that in a second, but my original question before the ADD took over was, I like to hear, your business now. What lessons, what things did you learn, going through your stroke and your hospitalization, and also through your previous career? How are you still taking those lessons and becoming a better realtor today?
So one of the biggest things is, things pop up in the real estate world all the time. Things happen through transactions. It's always different. No transaction is the same. No client is the same. One thing I learned in the event world is that I make the analogy of being like a duck on the pond. So on above the water, what you see is just a calm, serene duck floating around and enjoying the water. What you don't see under the water is them paddling vigorously trying to stay afloat. So I used to be that in the event world, where when I was in front of clients, I was poised, calm. Nobody knew anything was happening. I've had everything from a drunk bride falling over to a guest having a medical emergency. I've seen it all. Nobody knows about it.
Was this a drunk bride during the ceremony?
Just after, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
she
lovely.
didn't make it quite through her reception.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't take that one back. Anyways, back. I pick these things up.
So that is something that I've used in my real estate world now, is that I try to plan ahead for any scary surprise we may come across.
Okay.
So I always have a contingency plan. They say there's no fires in real estate. There's nothing that's really that prone to issues. Anything can be fixed. I use that, and it's true. Life could always be worse. If a deal falls apart, yes, it's unfortunate. It sucks. You move forward. You get through it.
Okay. So let's go back to the Colorado. Something I heard and just start to learn about you a little bit here is, you said that 2 years old, the kids are not going to school on Fridays. They're getting free lessons on the mountain. Definition of free, like nothing's really free. That's somebody's time. They're putting it back into their community. So you have ski instructors taking their time. You have the resorts providing the ski instructors to provide their time towards helping these kids eventually, learn a skill, learn a sport that's going to, people ski at the age of 82, right? That takes a lot of, it's kind of like you plant the seed for the tree of tomorrow kind of deal, right? And one thing I've learned about you is, do you think that's kind of helped you with your advocacy, with your, being a part of your community, all the things you do,
Absolutely.
The way you run your business?
If you're not giving back, you're not helping. I've always wanted to leave a positive impact, as corny as it sounds. I want to leave a positive impact on the world, whether it's my local community. However, when I'm gone, because there was a time when I wasn't sure I'd still be around with my health issues, how am I going to be remembered? am I going to be remembered? So that is something that I always try to give back, help somebody else. You know, everybody's allowed to run their real estate business the way that they choose. And that's the beauty of being a business owner. I don't turn clients away generally. You know, my first year in the business, I did 39 units, which is great. The caveat though is I did not sell a single property over $36,000. Most people wouldn't even take the time or energy to work on something of that nature. Mm-hmm. A client is a client. Becoming a homeowner or an investor and building a portfolio to have, you know, a long-term investment and making sure that you and your family are taken care of, that's worth it every time.
How long, 'cause you mentioned you were bartending. Mm-hmm. How long were you bartending into the start of your real estate career?
So I bartended on and off since I was 18 when I was legally allowed to. I was a server at a Denny's at 16. Okay. Became a bartender, bartended throughout college, and then kind of stepped away from it when I got into management within Vail Resorts. Came back into it part-time, just one, because it was fun, a little bit extra cash. And then when I sold my event business, I went back to bartending full-time while I was building my real estate business. And I was with that for about 7 months before I finally said, I need to be 100% into real estate.
Is that bar still there?
It is.
We'll give them a little shout out.
No. I appreciate their time. They helped me create what I have now. But yeah, they are on that lovely street that everybody knows when it comes to Detroit.
I don't know what that street is.
No?
No.
8 Mile.
8 Mile. Oh, okay. Like Slim Shady, right? Is that okay? I've actually never seen 8 Mile, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I've seen clips.
Yeah.
I've seen Scary Movie 3 where they pick on 8 Mile. Is that am I correct there?
I mean, it's 8 Mile.
It's 8 Mile. Like Scary Movie 3 I think was the best one. Have you seen all those?
No, after one, you stop. The only sequels, there was a few sequels that are good. Jaws, love them, hate them. They were great. 2 is great. The rest, Mm-hmm. Jurassic Park, the second one was good. 3, 4, 5, I have no idea.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk about this.
So we don't.
I think 2 and 3 get a little too much flack because 1 was so good.
How can you beat the original?
You can't. Jurassic Park's actually my. You might have missed. You definitely missed. I had my 30th birthday was Jurassic Park themed.
I love
and
that.
Helica was in a dinosaur suit the entire time.
Hilarious.
The dinosaur suit was actually in the front seat you sat in until I pulled it out yesterday because I was like, oh crap, someone's riding in my car for a little bit this weekend. So
I mean, you should have
bring it back out.
I was saying you should have picked me up from the airport in the dinosaur suit. That would have been great.
If we were any better, we would have done that. But we're just simple Augustans here. We don't have no 8 Mile. Anyways,
you're welcome for that.
So I had one more question. What's your favorite drink to make as a bartender? Just curious.
Jack on the Rocks.
Jack on the easy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work that hard with it. You didn't want to get all crazy and flip bottles.
No, so I did that when I was bartending. The green tea shots were just coming out. It was kind of the new thing. I was also bartending back in the day when Hypnotic was a big thing.
Okay.
And the vodka Red Bulls. So it was pretty simple. Three Horsemen of the Apocalypse, or 3 Wise Men, 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Those are absolutely terrible shots. I do not recommend. And if you ever hate somebody, order it for them because it's awful. Mm-hmm. The flaming shots.
Oh,
not a fan of that.
It's a huge liability. You see more videos of people catching on fire.
I have seen more generally intoxicated girls, but some guys also that forget to blow out the shot before they actually put it to their face.
See, that would have been me. Unfortunately, I probably would have just never put myself in that situation.
Probably best not to.
Yeah. Anyways, so do you find yourself your actual business in Detroit? You're doing a lot of single family stuff, but you've really started leveraging into this multifamily stuff, and you're taking ownership of some of these. So
absolutely. So
you've done two. You have interest in 2 multifamily units now?
I have interest in 2. One has closed. One closed at the beginning of this year. Larger buildings. The next one is 133 unit. It's under contract now that I will be a partner in. And then I own 12 doors myself outright.
Wow. I don't know of anyone. I'm sure there's someone doing it here. That's an interesting way to do it. So you basically just relinquish sort of your compensation. That's short-term money. It's going to go as fast as it comes in, and you're using that to sort of build a little bit of wealth and long-term
Correct.
income. I love that. I really like that. One of the advantages we as real estate agents, and I tell people to get their real estate license there's so many benefits outside of being a realtor, to be honest, and being able to handle contracts and removing that commission can be a huge advantage for you. Honestly,
it can be. And let's be clear, I still get paid. I don't give up all of my commission. I do give up a portion of it because I am always going to make sure that, one, my company gets paid. I am able to pay all of my bills for the marketing and being able to create all of that. The beauty of it is that it's a win-win in that without taking money out of my pocket, essentially, I'm now creating ownership as a partner within my clients. I'm also showing my clients, if they're newer clients, that I'm willing to invest with them. So it's not just come spend a lot of money on these buildings with me, but I will do it with you. It's just it's a way to earn their trust, earn their respect, because I'm never going to help a client buy, whether it's their individual family home or an investment. If I'm not willing to put the money into it myself, I would never recommend for them to do it, because it's more than likely it's probably going to be a bad investment. It's all about the long-term relationships. I've been in the business only 7 years. I still consider myself a baby realtor is what I call it. So how do I build that business to where in 20 years from now, I'm still their go-to? And that's how, is I make sure, if it's my first time home buyer, I tell them right then and there in the property, am I going to be able to sell this home for you when you're ready to upgrade in 5 years? I say that outright. So it's already putting that into their head, and then also making sure that they know I'm taking care of them, because they may love this house, yet I know that there's going to be X, Y, and Z struggles for us to try and sell it moving forward when they're ready to upsize.
I love it. So has this become really, this there's two. So this is sort of new for you. Is it kind of your new, this has been your project this year? What's been your overarching goal for 2023?
Biggest goal, I always try to get out of debt.
Okay.
So I do put financing in place of all of my properties. So I don't pay cash for them. I just don't see the value in paying cash. I would much rather put, even with interest rates, the last apartment building I closed on, I think I got an 8.5%, which is actually really good. I know people freak out when they see 8 number, but when it's in commercial, you can't go wrong with that. And as long as the numbers make sense and I'm still making a good net, it's worth it to me. So that was always a big one. The other one was I wanted to do a couple larger buildings, unit wise. So that was where this year, I was able to get, like I said, the 64 unit that we closed on in January. And that one, it only took us less than 60 days to close. The next one we've got right now is 133 units. That is getting ready to close. That'll close in Q4. There's a few other things that I've got my eyes on that I don't have contracts yet as a listing agent and or selling agent. It's in the works though, because Q4 is really my big push for my investments.
Right. And they got to spend it this year.
They got to get it spent. So I literally send an email out. Some of my realtor clients and colleagues will get it. All of my investors that have either put contact to me over the years or they've worked with me over the years, they get an email at the end of Q3. It says, hey, Q4s are coming around. I know you've got money to spend. Let me know how much you've got with the 1031s or whatever it is. Or what do you need to offload? Here's what I've got in my data bank coming up. Does this work for you? And it always puts that into their brain, because one thing I learned early on was that after Halloween, most realtors, they fall off the face of the earth. So I am happily going to take everything. Q4 is always my strongest quarter, always, historically. It was with residential because, when the winter comes in Michigan, at least, I know you guys have these nice warm weather all the time, but when it's -2 degrees outside with 2 feet of snow, going out and looking at houses is not exactly a high priority. So the people you get are serious clients, unlike window shoppers that we get in the summertime when it's nice and pretty and let's just go to open houses. So we get that. But then I also capitalize on the investments because I know these investors have things they've got to get done by the end of the year to save on tax incentives.
I love it. I love it. So it's maybe it's sort of a product of the season and the climate in a way. You're like, how do I get creative and how do I push things through? And wow, I love that. This is exciting. I'm learning so much this episode, guys. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So let's move. Let's shift a little bit. So
Sure.
NAR YPN Advisory Board, you're once again involved in committee after committee after committee after committee. And I think you've worked very hard. Can you please just name them all? You deserve
All right.
it.
So locally, I chair my Young Professionals Network. I sit on the Budget and Finance Committee. I sit on the our directors. So I'm a regent for one of our directors. Statewide, I am on the YPN. I was the co-chair of our convention task force this year, and I am the vice chair of our Realtor Political Action Committee trustees. Nationally, YPN. Do you see a theme here? The YPN Advisory Board, and then we have the honor of being able to sit on a secondary committee at NAR. We're the only people that do, and I am on the Commitment to Excellence Committee.
Okay. Commitment. That's the C2EX.
Correct. Yes.
Keep getting emails like, hey, you should probably come back and finish that.
Yes, and it's our 5-year anniversary, so we're having a huge party in Anaheim. So finish it, and you'll get the private invite. Invite only.
Gotta get out there to Anaheim. You said Anaheim. You've been there this year already, correct?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
So NAR, we'll get into this little nitty gritty. We have a lot of information out there, and personally, I see the value in not just the networking, but the advocacy, the RPAC, Realtor Political Action Committee. For those who don't know, there's a lot of things. The big thing, I guess, the standout obviously is the COVID years, right? And Michigan was shut down for 11 weeks.
We were shut down the longest, yes.
The longest. Mm-hmm. And Georgia was not 11 weeks. I think it was maybe 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. How was that? Must be nice.
Fantastic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was great. Actually, so I was into my first 8 months into my career. That big proponent of, I like to say 6 weeks. What you do today is going to manifest itself in 6 weeks. Okay. If you're busting your behind for an entire week, 6 weeks from now, for some reason, cool things will happen. So if you keep just busting your behind week after week, you'll get week after week after week.
Absolutely.
6 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Sort of, I see it. When I realized, I just kind of, validate it and go, yeah, it worked. So when I was working in the restaurant business, I said, if I can get 5 contracts on my table, that's when I'm comfortable walking away from food and beverage. So I did that whole song and dance for years. Then COVID happens, 3-4 weeks off. I get this little check in the mail for like $700 a week, I think it was, because the restaurant shut down. And I said, oh, crap, I'm full-time real estate now. Because we actually got to go into the realtors here in Georgia got to work during that part of the shutdown, at least in Georgia. Can't speak for Michigan, yeah. So we were out and about.
We were not allowed out of our homes for weeks. Real estate, it was 11 and a half, I think it was just under 11 and a half weeks. We were completely shut down, unable to see clients in person.
Oh my gosh.
After that, we were able to go into homes, only 2 people. So you had your realtor and 1 client, and you couldn't mix and match. So if you had a husband-wife duo, if you took the husband in, the wife was not allowed in. You'd have to actually schedule a second showing on a different day to take her through. Or what became, videos. We would do video walkthroughs, and that's how we ended up selling, because we were not allowed to. It was there was a long time where, unless you were an essential worker, you would actually get pulled over in the state of Michigan, and if you didn't have that essential worker card, you would get in trouble.
Holy cow!
We were shut down.
I don't remember that at all. Y'all remember that? I know, don't Mike, shake your head. No, I don't think we had that in Georgia. Wow. Oh, yeah. It allowed me to actually exit, because 6 weeks after I went back, shutdown went through 4 weeks of shutdown. I was at the restaurant for exactly 2 weeks after we were able to come back, because I had my 5 contracts and we had to leave. Not in Michigan. I don't think that would have happened in Michigan though. No. Oh my gosh.
No.
That's way more interesting. Okay, so how did you survive?
You pushed through. You stayed in contact with clients. A lot of it was the mental side. You stayed in contact with friends, because again, we were shut down in our homes. Everything was completely shut down. You could not, you couldn't take small children into grocery stores, so you had to go by yourself. If there was anything in the grocery store that you could actually buy, it was almost like what an apocalypse would look like. It was terrifying in Michigan for a long time. So at that time I was coaching volleyball and my girls were high schoolers. So I was staying in contact with them. I love that we have, social media and technology, because I would FaceTime with my girls to make sure that they were mentally okay, because I was not mentally okay. It was a struggle. Not that, we always joke as realtors that we hate people. We love people. It's just they're a lot to take on sometimes. And during that shutdown, I realized how much I needed people, and having to be a recluse in my home as a single person was not healthy for me.
Were realtors in Michigan allowed? I don't believe we were, because of 1099 contractors, right? So during all that, and that's what NAR was fighting, and eventually got pushed through because of advocacy dollars and being involved. Go figure. There's your freaking value. But were realtors really involved? Were allowed to get like the PPP loans, and if you had like a corporation maybe, but the compensation, because there were the checks that came out. Were realtors in Michigan able to really? There was just kind of where you just kind of just cut off.
So it took about 2 months, I believe. And if you were not making any commissions, you could qualify. Especially if you had dependents at home and things, you would get some government assistance. I never personally did it. I was able, thankfully, to keep going. Now, I was a foster parent at that time too. I had 2 children in my home, so I did get money from the state to help with them. Okay. But I personally did not get any of the money that was offered.
Okay. So by the way, did not know that. So you were a foster child. How long was that?
I'm a foster parent, not a foster child. Yeah.
You had foster children.
I'm sure my dad would love to say sometimes that, the only reason he kept me around is because I was a foster. But no, I'm biologically his. He has to claim me.
So how long did you have those kids on your household?
My first 2, they were a sibling set. The little boy I had for about 6 months. The little girl I had for almost a year. Okay. I went through the entire judicial process of removing their maternal or their mother, their biological mother's rights. Okay. I went through that whole process.
Are you looking to do that again in the future anytime soon?
I will. Yeah. Okay. So I've had 3 children total throughout in my house throughout the few years that I've been a foster parent. I always take at least a 6-month mental break afterwards. It is hard. It's taxing. Some of these kids have gone through things that we couldn't imagine in our worst dreams. So it does take its toll on you. One of my therapists, because you get therapy as well as a foster parent through the state, I was just having a really hard time listening to some of these very teeny tiny humans talk about things that, again, I would never even dream of, and it was normal to them at 4 years old. And she reminded me that these children, a lot of times they come into the system and there is no light at the end of their tunnel. I am the beginning of their light. So I am that little night light that's starting to glow brighter for them. So reminding myself of that is that I am just the beginning part of showing them that there is a healthy, loving life out there for them. Got me through all of the hardships.
Wow. Whew. Quick, I don't think I've ever had a foster parent on this show before. So anyone that's maybe interested in looking and getting into it, how do you take those steps?
So you can go to the state websites. Well, the Health and Human Services in Michigan is where it is. There's smaller organizations throughout your counties or in your towns that you can then go and get licensed through. It is a bit of a background check and classes and things because you are taking on, you're basically you're a parent. You have to follow all the guidelines and the rules. You are responsible for these humans that you're taking into your home. So it took about 6 months because they had to do a background check for me in both the state of Michigan and Colorado, because I lived in Colorado for a number of years. And that took a little bit of time to come back. They also did a background check of my father because I'm very close to him and he would obviously be around the children that came into my home. But I think it was about a 6-month process before I officially became licensed from start to finish.
And if I remember correctly, it kind of, when you were ready, it happened very quickly.
Yes. So I remember getting the call from my caseworker saying, you're officially licensed. Your license is in the mail. 3 or 4 days later, I got the first call of, we have a placement for you. Wow. There's such a need, and I'm sure it's nationwide. I know at least in the state of Michigan, there's such a need for private homes for children. Mm-hmm. We do have a few facilities, if you will, where they house multiple children in one building. Mm-hmm. It's not the healthiest. It's just what we can provide at the moment. So there is always, I get calls all the time. Now, luckily my caseworkers know that like after I return a child, whether they go back to mom and dad or they go to their adoptive home, because I'm a foster only home, mm-hmm. I need about a 6-month period to just kind of mentally reset myself, because it is a loss. I do create a relationship with these children. I had a 13-year-old in my home last year. She went back to mom and dad. She was with me for about 4 months. They're doing phenomenally. My little ones the first 2 I had, I don't have much of a relationship anymore with them. I did keep in contact with them up until they were adopted.
Okay.
So it's
you fostered them. They ended up being adopted. You said your 13-year-old went back to mom and dad, mm-hmm. and probably can't talk a whole lot about, why, how, I guess at some point just parents just sort of. So
that one I can. Okay. So the 2 little ones, like I said, mom's rights were relinquished through the state. So and in the state of Michigan, if you lose parental rights to one child, you lose to any children. Mm-hmm. I do know she's had 2 children since, and both of them have become wards of the state. The 13-year-old, mom and dad fell on some hard times, and they chose to put their daughter into assistance rather than having to put her into a shelter with mom, a mm-hmm. women's shelter, because men cannot go into the shelters. The shelters in Michigan, specific for women and children. And they chose to have her placed into a private home instead of that, because, they had lost their jobs and they were struggling. Mm-hmm. And they did everything they were required to through the state. They're great people. And they got it back. They have a very strong, loving bond. Their daughter is well kept for, and they are in the process of getting pre-approved to purchase a home.
That's awesome. And you're working with them, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're family. My clients are family. I joke with people, but when you buy or sell with me, and a lot of times you just come into my world, you become family. I have a very small biological family. It's really just my dad and I, and then my grandfather. So I've always wanted like this big family, mm-hmm. as my extended family is large. My nuclear family is very small. So this is my way of creating that big loving family, is just with clients and people I come in contact with.
I love it.
They're stuck with me whether they like it or not.
Sometimes we find the family you choose is also very more tolerable than the family you're not allowed.
Truer words have never been spoken more. Yes.
There's a way to say that phrase. I just completely botched it, but I botch about 10 phrases a minute in this podcast, so it's okay. So back to the entire laundry list of committees, and what's been your most favorite, like, just fun committee? I guess maybe, is it YPN? Is it
it changes. So YPN is always going to be near and dear to my heart because it's what started mm-hmm. me. When I kind of wanted to look into what these associations are, where my money was going, I didn't understand it. I was working for a brokerage that was not engaged at any level. Mm-hmm. So I kind of took it upon myself to figure out where this money was going and what was doing. And YPN was my gateway into it. Okay. Met a few YPN vets, we'll say, the OGs, if you will, and they've really taken me under their wings. They've helped me understand, the association, especially nationally. There's so much that, like, I've never even looked at the international side of it. And there's a whole international group that handles real estate and helps advocate real estate all over the world, not just here in the United States. I want to eventually get to that point. Right now, I'm really focusing on just understanding everything we do and how we help our communities as well as our industry locally. Okay. So that's been a big ally. So that will always be, the reason why I've been fortunate to have the opportunities I've had. I've never really been huge into politics, and yet right now, Realtor Political Action Committee, that is 100% my forward focus. Okay. There is, I have the opportunity to chair, like I said, our Realtor Political Action Committee trustees for the state for Michigan Realtors next year during an election year, and I am super excited for it. We've had a number of bills proposed this year, and it's a little scary for us. So being able to help our general counsel, Brian Westron, and Brad Ward, our VP of public policy at my state, to get this to where I still have an industry to work in 10, 15 years from now. Because if we don't help them keep these going, we may not have an industry.
Politics is they need to rebrand that word, honestly.
Agreed.
And just probably 2 years, I've just learned it is the TV shows is fun because politics is all just like a bunch of snakes in the grass trying to like, one up each other, and like they're just like fighting. And that's not where there's smoke, there's fire in a little bit. And, but honestly, it's so crazy because the more you actually get into it, right? It's just people that are just super passionate about their industry, their livelihood. They know what they're talking about. They've seen it. They live it. And they're just simply just fighting for these things, right?
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people who are in positions to make decisions that affect you that might not have as much understanding. So you're just here to really just make sure that your points and you have a voice, right? And in whatever way you can do it. Am I correct on this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So it's funny that you say we need to rebrand it. It's very similar. So, the negative connotation when you're a new realtor is that cold calling. Oh, I got to get on the phone. Everybody cringes and you say, okay, it's time to cold call. And then one goes, ugh. Or, oh, nope, coffee break. Like, don't want to do it. So I switched it years ago. Now it's opportunity finding.
Opportunity finding. Okay.
Right? Not as a scary word, more of an intrigue of like, because every relationship is an opportunity. So put that kind of on the political side, take out your personal view of what side of the aisle you sit on, focus solely on our industry. It completely opens your eyes on the ability your voice has to make an impact.
Okay.
Like I said, Michigan has a few bills right now that if they get passed would change our industry completely. One of them, one of the biggest ones, which other states have fought before, and we're kind of leaning on them to help, is the removal of realtors being a 1099 contractor. Yeah. Sounds great. Tell me what company is going to pay me the money I make in my commissions annually as a salaried person.
We would just be all inside sales agents.
Correct.
I guess.
And then we go back to that lovely conversation of opportunity finding over cold calling, because inside sales agents, what do they do all day? They opportunity find.
Yeah. Nope. And, so the other bill you spoke about earlier today was the was putting caps on rent.
Yes.
How that would destroy Detroit, destroy Michigan. Can you? What's your viewpoint on that? That interests me because I don't know exactly the economics of how that would affect things.
So we have two that are focused on rentals right now in Michigan. Two bills that have been proposed. One is the rental cap, like you said, which there's such a rental, Detroit specifically, it's such a big rental market because unfortunately, just over the last few generations, Detroiters are taught, and not all, most of Detroiters, those that are, blue collar that work but are unable to own, they're taught that they'll never be a homeowner. And that's not true. It's just that's the mental space that they've been given, that they will only ever be a renter. Now, on the investment side, that's great. I'm still a realtor first. So working to make sure that we can give them the opportunity and show them that there are ways for them to become homeowners, because that's the American dream. Like, that's literally what our country was built on. So how can we help? Being involved within the National Association, I've had the ability to meet people throughout the country who have done similar things and helped the impoverished areas become homeowners through federal funds or different opportunities. So I may not be the person to lead the charge. I can help put the people in place to make it happen, though. So that's one of the big ones. The other big one, now putting on the investor hat, is that right now in the state of Michigan, you as a landlord, investor, whatever you want to call it, have the choice to work with Section 8 or government housing. It's not a requirement. There's a bill on the table, or on the floor rather, that would require you to do that. I personally always have chosen working with Section 8 or VA, any type of government entity, over, just a cash tenant. I have a great relationship with the organizations, and I just prefer it. That's my preference. Everybody is not the same way. Now, there is, similar to FHA and VA loans, there are some things you have to make sure that your home fits to.
Yep.
It's a few extra dollars. It's not anything exorbitant. Some people just don't want to do it. That's their right. On the flip side, the slang term slumlord, it's a very real thing. I come across it all the time, unfortunately. So requiring somebody to be a Section 8 landlord, I don't necessarily think that's the right thing. I do think that we should have some sort of requirement on, if you're going to have a rental property, it needs to have X, Y, Z in place so that people are living in conditions that are actually livable.
When you have a requirement to be a Section 8 landlord, where does that leave people who don't need Section 8 to be tenants? Well,
and that's kind of one of the reasons why we're fighting this. And that now we do have, again, Detroit specific, Michigan specific, we have about a 33% increase of vouchers from the last couple years, and we aren't able to fill them. So that is very hard. I understand that side of it. So it comes back to, okay, so now perhaps we need to go back a little bit more and look and see how we can help create affordable housing, not just requiring a landlord who maybe owns 2 individual, single family homes, putting this requirement on them when, we're talking about houses. Most of the houses I work with in Detroit were built in the 20s and 30s. So we're coming up, it's a 100-year-old house. There's going to be problems. Many of the ones that have been dilapidated and built down, we've actually demolished and are starting to build things. But again, there comes times, and it all goes back into politics of who's in power at the time, whether we can actually build apartment buildings or townhouses or things like that. Will the city allow us? Will they give us tax incentives? And if not, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they haven't. So there were about 6 years ago, investors from the South actually that came up into Michigan and were buying city blocks at a time.
Wow.
Tearing down all of the houses that truly needed to be torn down anyway. They proposed to make these blocks of like duplexes and small multifamilies because it's less expensive to build and we can put more people in. And they got denied by the city. So now they're just empty blocks.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there.
I thought I've seen photos of these empty blocks. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. So we have a lot of down here, and honestly, from what I've learned today, we probably need to send them up to Michigan, in my opinion. But we have COVID, FaceTime, Google. I think it's Google Meet now.
Yep.
Showing a house to somebody in Seattle or California or Maryland or Texas is so easy. And we're seeing a lot of that now. Right now is these investors are discovering Augusta, Georgia, so they're buying here.
Oh yeah,
because they can't get a rental property in Oregon for $200,000 that cash flows immediately, but they can here. And but it sounds, and this leads me to the next question. I think you're really teeing yourself up here for some incredible success over the next few years. We always ask our guests this question, so I'm going to bring it to Michigan. So what is something that you think that Michigan, what do people in Michigan call themselves?
So if you're from the Lower Peninsula, you're from the Mitten, we're Michiganders. If you're from the Rabbit or the Upper Peninsula, you're a Michiganian.
So Michiganders or Michiganians.
Yes.
The Mittens are Mittens and Rabbits. Is there a way to remember that?
Michigander, Michiganian. Most Michigan born are Michiganders from the Lower Peninsula.
Where is Detroit?
Lower Peninsula.
Okay, so they're Michiganders.
Yes, Detroit looks at Canada.
A gander of geese, okay. Gander of geese in Michigan.
We have lots of Canadian geese.
Yeah, those things. Hold on, forget that. I heard swans. People, this whole thing about swans.
They're evil.
Yeah, well, they use swans to keep away the geese from golf courses up there. Is that what I heard the other day?
Yes, but I would rather deal with a gaggle of geese than one swan.
Okay.
All day.
They're just assholes.
Geese are very mean.
Oh, Lord.
They're pretty. They're very mean.
Oof. Well, what is, and this is how we end the show. What is one thing that Michiganders should be excited about in the next 12 months in real estate there?
Everything.
Everything. Okay.
Everything. I mean, it's funny because everyone's like, oh, the market is terrible. It's great. It's not a good time to buy. It's great to just hang out. Why? You're investing in your future. It's always a good time to invest. It's so funny because every time I travel, I always want to know like price points. Let me know what you're talking about. So you said, $200,000 investment. $200,000 investment in Detroit, I can get you a 4-unit. So last Friday, I closed on a single family investment property, fully renovated, all the way down to all the brand new plumbing all the way through. Do you know how much I closed that for?
I've been wrong every time. Just lay it on us.
$66,000 with $1,000 in seller concessions to a client I've never met who lives in Washington State, and her husband wanted to start a portfolio.
What's the build out on that, on a $66,000 unit? Like, what do they have to put into it?
Nothing.
What?
We literally, it is good to go. Property management walked through it with me day before closing. I think there's a few light bulbs we have to change, and we will get $1,500 to $1,600 a month on this 3-bed, 1-bath colonial.
Holy cow.
Welcome to Detroit.
Well, folks, if you have not just perked up in your seat, you should be calling Randy up in Detroit. Get out of here. Let us buy our own houses. We're just fine. You'll be coming up to Detroit and swallowing all those up. Randy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks
You've been
for having
talking
me.
for 2 hours. We'll get you out of here now.
Oh, I don't mind it. I love it. When you're passionate about what you do every day, I can talk on it all day long.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And this has been another episode of the Market Shakers podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on the platform of your choice, and do not forget to leave us a 5-star review. Once again, we'd like to thank all of our guests, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.